Greeting everybody. So I am back from this incredible expedition oceanographer Pierre-Robert de la Tour and I did to the far end of British Columbia, and returned to my forensic and clinical center here to respond to questions that have been asked to me repetitively over the course of the last few weeks by my students who continuously ask me, why do I keep attracting the wrong partners into my life? Why do I keep attracting abusive relationships? Why do I replicate the pattern of abuse constantly? And in order to respond to this, I designed today, this week, actually I was pretty creative, I designed a blueprint of the mind that helps us understand that there are actually 4 reasons why we keep replicating toxic and abusive relationships into our life. And this has to do with the architecture and blueprint of our brain and the way that our brain was developed in early life when we began to understand or to be taught who we are and how the world functions around us. So the first concept and reason for the appearance of toxic relationships in adult life is based on a faulty programming that was embedded in early life based on 2 components. The number one is a faulty self-image. This is what we develop when we are taught by our caretakers, parents, or families that who we are is not worthy, is not deserving of love, is not deserving of being cherished and accepted exactly as we are. So we grow up with the idea that we are faulty, that we are unworthy, unlovable, that who we are deep inside is not acceptable. And our state, our beliefs, our image and ideas about ourselves are constantly transmitting, just like a radio station transmits worldwide. Our emotions and our beliefs are constantly transmitting. This is called the biology of belief, and it determines what we experience along the course of our journey. The second one is a faulty reality where we're taught that love equals harm, that love equals abuse, that if you love me, you will harm me, and if you love me, you will abuse me. And this is what we experience in early life, and this is what determines what we will experience in adult life until we address and repair those faulty programmings with brain plasticity and brain rewiring. The second concept is what I call fatal attraction. And I call this way because it is an inherent and inherited familiarity to abusers that we experience when in early life we were mistreated, maybe possibly beaten, or put down, neglected, and not cherished, protected, listened to, not led to be taught that who we are is deserving of love and care and respect and attention and protection. So basically, we grew up familiar with the psychological makeup of abusers. And when that happens in adult life, you go about your life in the world and you encounter many different people. And some of them you will feel absolutely neutral towards. Some of them you might feel not interested at all towards. And some of them you will feel this instant attraction, right? That feeling of, wow, I feel like I already know them. Have we met them before? Did we ever interact? I feel like I already know you. And because of the, what I also call the Disney ideation of romantic fantasy, we believe that this instant attraction and familiarity is love, right? Well, it's not. It's a big red flag. So now, if you grew up in a context, in a family that was loving and nurturing and gentle and kind and taught you that who you are is worthy and you should be loved and protected and nurtured, you will find this familiarity with people who are of the same makeup, so that will be perfectly all right. However, if you grow up with within families where you are beaten and abused and put down and disrespected and led to believe that your needs are irrelevant and you should dedicate yourself to the needs of others, well, then you will find this familiarity with the same psychological makeup individuals, and therefore with abusers, who will very cleverly hide their games, because abusers will do that, as we all know, until they have you all wrapped up in their control, right? And then the second thing that happens is you have porous boundaries. So what we call porous boundaries is the fact that we were never taught that neglect is not okay, that we were never taught that abuse is absolutely not okay, that we were taught to tolerate so much harm. So our boundaries will be much above and beyond what we should actually tolerate. It's getting windy here, so let me just stick this little graphic that I might scan for you so it doesn't fly away. And therefore, our boundaries are porous, and therefore we will tolerate much longer mistreatment. Whereas somebody who was raised within a loving and supportive environment, if they encounter an abusive partner, they will instantly say, wait a minute, no, this is not acceptable, have a nice life, and move on. Before we do this work and reconstruct our boundaries, we will find ourselves staying much longer in relationships that are completely disrespecting us, that are abusive, and that are unhealthy and toxic, with cheaters and liars and violent partners who will not change, by the way, because abusers will remain abusers, and all we can do is learn that who we are deserve more, walk away, turn the page, rebuild ourselves, and find loving, beautiful individuals who are out there. And the last principle is trauma addiction. And if you look in my YouTube channel, through the videos that I've done, I've dedicated a video to trauma addiction. Trauma addiction results from the combination of massive amounts of endorphins, cortisol, and adrenaline that are flooded into our system, produced, released by our brain, and circulated into our body during abuse and toxic stress. So when we experience an abusive childhood, where we're constantly under high stress, where our life is threatened, where our safety is threatened, where we feel rejected and neglected, and possibly endangered even, our brain will continuously produce these high levels of hormones that corresponds to the fight or flight system, the fight or flight mode. And these hormones are very potent chemical and hormonal cocktail that is being released in our brain and flooded and circulated through our body. And when that happens constantly, our brain becomes accustomed to functioning with this specific level of hormones and chemicals that become the norm for our brain. And when the stress is suddenly alleviated, what happens is the brain and body will go into that withdrawal syndrome that is similar to opiate withdrawal syndrome. So you will feel anxious, irritable, depressed, otherwise absolutely awful. You will feel this unease and discomfort that is continuously there. And your brain will subconsciously, below the conscious awareness, be compelled to replicate this level of hormones. And the way to do that is by experiencing either danger or conflict or high level of risk in your behaviors. And so therefore, for those of us who experience high levels of toxic stress in early childhood, we will be compulsively attracted to high-risk behaviors, dangerous activities, dangerous careers, dangerous hobbies and sports, and conflictual relationships. And when you find yourself, without having addressed that, in a loving and nurturing relationship, what happens is you will find yourself feeling possibly very uncomfortable and out of sorts, because this is not what you're used to. And you will either sabotage the relationship or be completely uninterested in it, or simply not attracted by this type of relationships, and you will naturally gravitate towards people who replicate that level of danger towards you. So all of this is absolutely fixable and repairable. It requires working with brain plasticity and brain rewiring. It requires going back to the source of this patterning in your brain and repairing your emotional fabric, repairing your sense of self-image, repairing your conception of the world around you, basically teaching your brain that who you are is worthy of being loved and cherished and nurtured, and who you are can completely flourish in a loving and beautiful relationship. And so once we do this work, we truly embark in the best chapter of our lives, in the chapter of our lives when we first learn how to love and nurture ourselves, because that's where it starts. We cannot hope or expect others to treat us well when we don't treat ourselves well. And it starts with step number one. That's what I teach to everybody who works with me: how to nurture, love, respect, and accept yourself exactly as you are. And once you become familiar with this, and once we've addressed the faulty self-image and repaired it, then you start transmitting a completely different image about yourself, and therefore the world starts treating you differently. So today we addressed 4 principal reasons why we attract toxic partners repetitively through the course of our journey, and how to stop that pattern using brain plasticity and brain rewiring. My name is Genvièv. I'm a forensic and clinical hypnotherapist, board certified instructor with the NGH, and emergency medicine first responder with the Wilderness Medicine Institute. This channel here is dedicated to helping you become stronger together. So please do subscribe. Join our beautiful community of thrivers, survivors who have all emerged from difficult paths, and we stand stronger when we stand together. So join us here, subscribe, share, and share your comments as well. They're important. Your stories matter, and they're what help us understand that we're not alone. And we will address your questions. I will respond to them either below on the comment section or in my next videos. And until then, have a wonderful weekend, everybody, and see you next time.